My name is Emery Wolf. I was in the Army. I was a private first class. I was drafted into the Army. And I was born and raised in Downers Grove. Went to Downers Grove High School. Graduated in 3 years because I got called up to the principal's office and said I would probably be drafted before I would graduate, so he suggested I go to summer school, which we never heard about here at that time. So there was about 8 or 10 of us that had to go to LaGrange High School to get our senior classes that we were required to have, which was English and history. So I graduated in 1945, and I was 18 in August, and at the time I talked to, well, I knew the head of the draft board, who was a lady, Mrs. Kelly. Her son and my cousin, the three of us, we were the Three Musketeers in school. So I had it in with her, and I told her that when I got signed up that I wanted to be drafted right away. I volunteered right away. I didn't want to wait. So that was August 3rd. August 20th, I got the notice, and I went in. It was before that. I had a report August 20th, and I went down to Chicago. I took my physical, passed the physical, and was sent to a certain area with some other men that were there, and we had to sit and listen to the lecture that what we were going to expect was going to happen, and we were put on a train and sent up to Fort Sheridan. During basic training, we did everything. It was combat training, and some guys asked me how come it took us so long. I said, well, we were a little slow. But anyway, we did an awful lot. We learned how to use all the infantry equipment and stuff, like the weapons, and it was very interesting. So not realizing what you're getting into, you find out pretty fast. And then we got to Camp Pickett, and was there a very short time. And what we did is we changed our clothes, because in California we had a lot of, well, we were there during the fall, but we had to get rid of our summer clothes, and all of a sudden we got a basic winter uniform, all wool, this and that. We also had a wool uniform in California too for the winter, but everything we got was all kind of heavy. Says, we're not going to the Pacific. Everybody packed up, and they put us on a train and took us to a port somewhere in New Jersey on the coast, and we got on a ferry boat that took us out to Staten Island, New York. In Staten Island, we got on board that ship. By the time we got there, it was probably in the afternoon. Going down the gangplank there, the Red Cross was there and gave us a little kit with a paperback book to read, and a package of cigarettes in there, and cards, and a couple. What else? I think there was a candy bar in there. But anyway, that's what the Red Cross gave us there. On board ship, there was probably, I'd say, close to 400, maybe 400 guys, maybe 500. It was not a very big ship, and it was called the Williams Victory. And it took us 8 days to cross the ocean. And the cruise going over wasn't too bad for January, because it was, I guess, the Gulf Stream or something like that, and the weather wasn't too bad. And we, like I said, we took 2 days. On board ship, or 8 days. And on ship, they had movies that you could see, and they had classes in French and German that you could take while you were doing that. Gave you a little heads up on what we were going to get into. And then other than that, we didn't do nothing but sit out on the deck until if you got called to go on KP or something like that, which I didn't on that trip. But we landed in the port of Le Havre, right next to the beaches, or landing beaches, and we had a little trouble getting into the port because the Germans had scuttled a bunch of ships, boats, whatever you want to call them, throughout the harbor to block the Seine River where it came into the English Channel. So we had to zigzag around and with a tugboat and pull us through there. So then we got on the train, and we were told that it's going to take a while to get there because the railroad system was a mess. And so there'd be places where we'll stay, and sometimes we'll be moving. But anytime we had a hot meal stop, which they had along the way, they said that we would stop and get off the train if you're going to eat one meal a day or 2 or 3 meals a day. You didn't know. So anyway, we got along there, and the food wasn't the best. In one case, it was K rations, and sometimes it was oatmeal. So we finally got to, I can't remember the name of the town. It was in Germany. It was a replacement center. But by the time I got there, I had frostbite on my feet from that iron floor on the. It was that cold over there. And I didn't change my socks, which was a no-no. So it was the sweating in my feet. Why then I had a case of frostbite. So I got to the replacement center. Well, they put me in the hospital for a day to thaw me out, and then didn't do anything until my name came up and got put back on a train. So then I was shipped back through France, halfway back across, from Germany back halfway across France to Reims, France, which was about 70 miles northeast of Paris, something like that. So I went over in the infantry, and they stuck me at a quartermaster depot. They were guarding German prisoners. So I worked 8 hours on and 24 hours off. That was our shift. And our group, the group I was, were the only ones that carried weapons, and that. So we would get up in the morning. If you had the 8 o'clock shift, where you had to be there by 8. You get up, have your chow, and then got out to the depot, and we would go to the Stockade and pick up the group of soldiers or German prisoners and march them to the area where they were going to work, because they didn't sit there and do nothing. They all had jobs, and we kept them working to keep them busy and out of trouble. And they did get in trouble once in a while, but then you'd have to take them back in the evening or whenever you got done. However, there were times you might have to go pick one up and take him back because he was a bad boy or whatever. But the main job there was to keep him from going home and escaping, which we had a few that tried, and we took care of that. But anyway, we won't go into that. But anyway, I was there, and well, I liked Reims. It was a very nice town, had a lot of history to it. One of the prettiest cathedrals in Europe, I think, and the history of the cathedral, that's where the kings and queens of France had their coronation. Joan of Arc was knighted there, so that's a little history there. Great wine country, champagne country, but a nice town. I think it was a population of about probably 200,000 people, 100,000 anyway. It was a big town. So I was there, and Reims also is where they signed the surrender with Germany at the school. And I'd been in that school several times doing stuff, or in and out of there. And I'd been in that room where they signed the peace more than once. And but anyway, they kept these guys. Well, first of all, the German prisoners did all the work. They did the cooking, they did the cleaning, they took material that came in and went out at the depot. They had to separate that good, bad, or junk, whatever. And then they got to the point where we had to get rid of them because December 31st, 1946 was the official end of World War II. That's when President Truman declared that. So we had to get rid of the prisoners by that day. Well, I got a driver's license. I got friendly with one of my company commanders, and he asked me if I wanted to do this. He said, "You got to take a truck." And I says, "I don't know how to drive." He said, "Well, we'll take care of that." So he did. He got me driving and got me a license. I still have that license. And my job was to take these prisoners to a separation center. And I don't know, probably 20, 30 miles away was 4 trucks. And I was the only GI. And I had 1 rifle with 10 rounds of ammunition. I had 129 prisoners that I was in charge of. And I'm only a private first class. So anyway, we went to, drove through some of the little towns, and that people saw us coming. Rocks and bottles got thrown at the trucks and all that. So, but we got there, and when I got to the separation center, I turned them over to the officer there. I had to sign a paper that I brought in 129 live bodies, no dead, no wounded. So, and that was about the end of that. So now what am I going to do? I'm out of a job. So I knew another officer there that I got friendly with. I guess I was playing with the right people. But anyway, he was a commander of an engineering outfit, Army engineers. So I got in with them, and they got me driving a bulldozer and a road grader. And what we were doing, we were starting to demolish the stuff that we got. We had canine dogs there. We had about 10 dogs, the meanest things you ever saw. And but we went through there and tore them all up and knocked the building down and all that with a bulldozer. And then we had a big field full of airplanes, all wrecks. I mean, I'd say most of them were German aircraft, Messerschmitts, Focke-Wulfs bombers, and there were a few American in there. So our job there was take that bulldozer, me and another guy, a couple of us, and flatten them up. So we destroyed them. We rolled them, we knocked them all up and piled them up, and we had these piles, several piles with all these fuselages and wings and stuff like there. And somebody came along later on. I don't know what happened to it, but they probably hauled it away to make pots and pans out of. But that was interesting. But one thing was that there was not a motor there. All those planes, all the motors had been taken off somewhere else. Another week till I got transferred to another section of that, which put me into a little town called Reiskirchen. And it's a little farm town. And we had an office in Grossenbusik, or vice versa, one of the two. And they were different. We ran a motor pool. My job there basically was gopher. Go for this, go for that, because I was a short timer, so they didn't know how long I was going to be there. And also the company commander said he wanted me to work with the kids in the town. And so we take them out there, and I go sled riding. We take the Jeep and pull them around with the Jeep on their sleds and stuff, but we kept them busy, and they had a school there, and I'd go there with the kids there, so that was interesting. And he said, be sure you go to the PX once in a while in Gießen and get some candy, because those kids like to be paid for playing sports or whatever they did, so I did. But anyway, that was nice. That was just like living at home. And then the day came, he called me into the office, and he says, you know, you're a short timer. I says, yes. And he said that my job is to see if you'd like to re-enlist for 3 years. And I said, sir, I landed here over 2 years ago, or just about 2 years ago, and you gave me my stripe the first time I got it within the first month, and now you want me to, I says, if you give me 3 stripes, I would do it. But I says, because I had no real reason to want to come back home for a while. So I said, he said, well, I can't do it. And I said, well, I can't sign it. During the time that I was there, the Nuremberg trial was going on. So we were all pretty well informed as to what was going. And then the day came, October 16th, 1946. Now that sticks in my head. It's stupid, but it is. That's the day that they executed all the big-time Nazis. And when I was on duty that night from 5 till midnight, and I got relieved at midnight, and the guy says, Wolf, you should have been in town. He says, boy, town is wide open. He says, they're dancing in the street. And I said, why? He says, because they hung those guys that night. So they're celebrating. But that was probably one of the biggest thing I can really sticks out in my mind while I was there. So finally, the day came that we were going to leave, and we take down, we did the pier, and we got on board a bigger ship than we went over, and it was called the General Richardson or something like that. And it had been so cold up there that they had to have an icebreaker come in there and loosen the ice up around the harbor so we could get away from the dock. And then once we got out there, then we had to go out into the North Sea, sail through that, and that was all ice. And then English Channel for a while, and that ice was so thick, I don't know why Hitler could have walked across the ice as far as I was concerned. It took us 10 days to cross the ocean. This time it was different. It was cold and it was rough. But getting off the ship, before we got to Camp Kilber, we had to go through basically, well, we had to get inspected. We had to empty everything out on a table. We even had a strip to make sure we weren't carrying anything on. So then we got that done, and then we had to put us on the train to Camp Kilber. And the next day I don't think they even fed us that night because we had it on ship. But we went down to Fort Dix, New Jersey. And Fort Dix, then we got another physical and checked over by the dentist and the eye doctor and everything else. And then we sat there and waited and says, "What's your name?" And then we got the name, and you go down there and you sit in there, and they took and lectured us about going home and being careful how you talk and stuff like that, you know. And then finally they says, "Okay, you're out of the Army. So you got to be off the base by 5 o'clock or something like that." But then how are we going to go home? How are we going to go? Where do you get a train, or how you go? So we found that thing there. So there was two Air Force pilots that had bought an airplane, one of these C-47s like the paratroopers used. So they bought that. They were chartering it. So there was 30, I believe, like 38 of us on there. We chartered that airplane and flew it to Municipal Airport, which was now, Midway. But that's what I did. I was there. I did what I was told. I stayed out of trouble, and I made it back home. Like I said, I had probably pretty easy duty, but I thought there was things I saw and did that I wouldn't even tell my mother. So, but that was my experience there. I mean, occasionally today, a young boy or something like that, he'll come up to you and shake your hand, thank you for your service. And, you know, I appreciate it when the kids do that, but and parents, a lot of younger parents, they all do that today. Since all this stuff that's going on now, I think they appreciate the veterans more now than they did kind of back then.
You've lived a long time, you've gone through a lot. What would you give them? What advice?
Well, stay healthy for one thing. Get an education. And what else? Get along with people, no matter who they are.